There comes a moment in life when nothing outside of you needs to change. Because everything that truly matters is happening within you, not your job, not your relationships, not your past. The real transformation begins when you change the way you see yourself. Because the truth is this: you don't live according to your potential. You live according to your self-image. If you see yourself as small, you will play small. If you see yourself as broken, you will accept broken treatment. If you see yourself as unworthy, you will settle for less than you deserve. Even when more is available. Most people don't realize they are trapped. Not by circumstances, but by perception. They are living inside a story they learned, not a truth they chose. A story written by childhood wounds, past failures, rejection, comparison, and fear. And over time, that story becomes familiar, comfortable, even convincing. But familiar does not mean true. You were never meant to be defined by the worst thing that happened to you. You were never meant to be limited by someone else's inability to see your value. You were never meant to carry shame as an identity. The way you see yourself determines what you tolerate, what you pursue, and what you believe is possible. When you see yourself as strong, you stop begging for validation. When you see yourself as worthy, you stop chasing attention. When you see yourself as capable, you stop waiting for permission. Your inner voice matters more than any outer noise. The conversation you have with yourself every day is shaping your destiny. If you constantly tell yourself you are not enough, the world will echo that belief back to you. If you constantly doubt your worth, opportunities will feel intimidating instead of exciting. If you constantly replay your past, your future will feel unreachable. But the moment you change the narrative, everything shifts. You don't have to be louder. You don't have to be tougher. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You only have to decide that the version of you shaped by pain no longer gets to lead your life. Changing the way you see yourself means choosing compassion over criticism. It means replacing self-blame with self-understanding. It means recognizing that growth doesn't erase your past. It redeems it. Healing doesn't make you weak. Self-awareness doesn't make you fragile. Sensitivity doesn't make you powerless. In fact, they make you unstoppable. When you change the way you see yourself, you stop living in survival mode and start living in alignment. You begin to move with confidence, not because you know everything, but because you trust yourself enough to learn. You stop shrinking in rooms that require your presence. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop negotiating your worth. And something incredible happens. The world begins responding to the version of you that finally believes in herself. This change does not happen overnight. It happens in quiet moments, in small decisions, in choosing to speak kindly to yourself, in choosing growth over comfort, in choosing truth over fear. So today, let this be your moment. Release the image of who you thought you had to be. Let go of the labels that no longer serve you. Step into the truth of who you already are. Because when you change the way you see yourself, you don't just change your mindset. You change your life. Every person lives by a story, not the story others tell about them, not the story written by circumstances, but the quiet, repetitive story they tell themselves every single day. That inner narrative shapes how you walk into a room, how you handle failure, how you accept love, and how much success you believe you deserve. Long before the world treats you a certain way, you treat yourself according to the image you hold inside your mind. If you see yourself as someone who is not enough, you will unconsciously settle for less respect, less love, less opportunity. If you see yourself as broken, behind, or unworthy, your choices will quietly confirm that belief. You may work hard, smile often, and appear confident on the outside, yet deep inside, your actions will still align with the version of yourself you believe to be true. That is the power of self-perception. The most important transformation in your life does not begin with changing your job, your relationships, or your environment. It begins by changing the way you see yourself. Because the way you see yourself determines what you tolerate, what you chase, and what you walk away from. When your self-image is small, your life becomes small. When your self-image expands, your world expands with it. Many people are unknowingly loyal to an outdated version of themselves. They continue seeing themselves through old mistakes, past failures, childhood wounds, or labels placed on them by others. They carry opinions that were never theirs to begin with. Over time, those borrowed beliefs become internal truth, and once a belief becomes familiar, even if it is painful, it starts to feel safe. But here is the truth that changes everything. You are not required to live according to the version of yourself you outgrew. Changing the way you see yourself does not mean pretending to be someone else. It means recognizing who you have become. It means allowing your growth to update your identity. It means giving yourself permission to evolve without guilt, explanation, or apology. The moment you begin speaking to yourself with respect, your confidence shifts. The moment you stop replaying your failures and start honoring your progress, your posture changes. The moment you stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start declaring, "I am becoming," your energy changes. And when your energy changes, the world responds differently. Self-perception influences every decision you make. If you believe you are capable, you try. If you believe you are worthy, you ask. If you believe you are valuable, you protect your time. If you believe you matter, you stop shrinking. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. This is self-honoring truth. Changing the way you see yourself requires awareness. You must listen to your inner dialogue. You must notice how you describe yourself when no one is listening. Are you encouraging or critical? Are you patient or punishing? Are you supportive or dismissive? Because your mind is always listening, and it believes what you repeat. You build a stronger self-image by choosing new thoughts, even when the old ones feel familiar. You do it by speaking kindly to yourself, especially on hard days. You do it by acknowledging your effort, not just your outcomes. You do it by treating yourself as someone worth believing in. As you change the way you see yourself, your standards rise naturally, your boundaries strengthen, your courage grows. You stop chasing validation because you are no longer negotiating your worth. You begin making decisions from confidence instead of fear, from clarity instead of doubt. And eventually, something powerful happens. You stop asking the world to see you differently, because you finally do. Change the way you see yourself, and you will change the way your life unfolds. Every human being lives by a story. Not the story the world sees, but the one that quietly plays in your mind when no one is watching. That story shapes how you walk, how you speak, how you dream, and how you limit yourself. It decides whether you see opportunity or obstacles, strength or weakness, possibility or fear. And the most important truth you must understand is this: you do not rise above the story you tell yourself. You live inside it. Many people unknowingly imprison themselves with their own inner dialogue. They repeat narratives formed by past failures, painful experiences, criticism, rejection, or comparison. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. People like me don't succeed. This is just who I am. Over time, these thoughts stop sounding like opinions and start sounding like facts. But they are not facts. They are learned beliefs, and anything learned can be unlearned. Your identity is not built by one moment. It is built by repetition. Every thought you repeat strengthens a pathway in your mind. Every label you accept becomes a role you play. When you constantly tell yourself you are weak, you act weak. When you tell yourself you are invisible, you live unseen. When you tell yourself you are capable, resilient, and worthy, your behavior begins to align with that truth. The danger is not failure. The danger is the meaning you attach to failure. Two people can experience the same setback, yet one becomes discouraged while the other becomes determined. The difference is not circumstance. It is interpretation. One says, "This proves I'm not enough." The other says, "This proves I'm growing." The story you choose becomes the life you experience, Changing the way you see yourself requires changing the language you use with yourself. Your words carry energy. They shape emotion. They influence action. If your inner voice is harsh, your life will feel heavy. If your inner voice is encouraging, your life will feel possible. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. With honesty, compassion, and belief. You must also understand that your past does not get to define your future unless you allow it to. What happened to you is not who you are. What you survived is not your limitation. It is your proof. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. But becoming requires letting go of outdated narratives that no longer serve your growth. At first, changing your inner story will feel uncomfortable. Your mind may resist. Old beliefs will try to pull you back into familiar patterns. That resistance is not failure. It is evidence that transformation is happening. Stay with it. Correct your thoughts, challenge the lies, replace them with truths rooted in possibility and self-respect. Ask yourself powerful questions. Who would I become if I believed in myself fully? How would I show up if I stopped doubting my worth? What choices would I make if fear no longer defined me? These questions redirect your focus and open doors that once felt locked. Remember, the world responds to the identity you project. When you see yourself as confident, others feel it. When you see yourself as capable, opportunities appear. When you see yourself as worthy, you stop settling. Your external reality begins to shift because your internal story has changed. You are not here to repeat an old narrative. You are here to rewrite it. You are the author. You hold the pen. And the moment you decide to tell a stronger story about who you are, your life begins to reflect that strength. Change the story you tell yourself, and you change the way you see yourself. The way you speak to yourself becomes the blueprint for the life you live. Every thought you repeat, every label you place on yourself, and every silent judgment you make forms the foundation of your confidence, your decisions, and your self-image. If your inner voice is harsh, critical, and unforgiving, you will move through life doubting your worth, shrinking your potential, and questioning your place in the world. But when your inner dialogue becomes supportive, honest, and empowering, everything begins to change. Most people are not limited by their circumstances. They are limited by the stories they tell themselves. Stories like, I'm not enough, I always fail, or I don't deserve better, quietly run in the background, influencing behavior without permission. These thoughts don't just stay in the mind, they shape posture, tone, relationships, and opportunities. You don't rise above what you consistently tell yourself. You live up to it. Changing the way you see yourself requires becoming aware of how you talk to yourself. Would you speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself? Would you motivate someone you love by tearing them down? If the answer is no, then it's time to change the inner conversation. Self-growth does not begin with perfection. It begins with compassion and truth. When you replace self-criticism with self-awareness, you reclaim your power. When you shift from I can't to I'm learning, from I failed to I grew, and from I'm broken to I'm becoming, you begin to see yourself differently. And the moment you change that inner voice, the outer world responds differently. Your inner dialogue is not just talk, it's instruction. Make sure it's guiding you towards strength, not self-doubt. The way you see yourself is deeply influenced by the environment you live in, the people you surround yourself with, and the messages you absorb every single day. Your identity does not exist in isolation. It is constantly shaped, reinforced, or weakened by what you hear, what you tolerate, and what you repeatedly expose your mind to. If you want to change the way you see yourself, you must first become aware of the environment that keeps reflecting the old version of you back at you. Many people try to change internally while staying in the same external conditions that created their self-doubt in the first place. They remain around people who remind them of their past mistakes. They stay in spaces where they are underestimated, interrupted, or overlooked. They consume content that feeds fear, comparison, and negativity, and then they wonder why their self-image refuses to grow. The truth is simple. You cannot build a new self-image in an environment that constantly reinforces the old one. Your environment speaks to you, even when no words are spoken. It tells you what is possible. It tells you what is normal. It tells you how much you are allowed to dream, grow, and change. When you are surrounded by limitation, criticism, or emotional heaviness, your mind adapts to that energy. You begin shrinking your expectations. You lower your standards. You stop imagining a bigger life because your surroundings never show you one. Changing your environment does not always mean walking away from people or places overnight. Sometimes it begins with small, intentional shifts. It starts with choosing silence over noise. It starts with limiting access to those who constantly drain your confidence. It starts with creating physical and emotional spaces where you can breathe, think, and reflect without judgment. These shifts may seem small, but they are powerful because they send a message to your mind: I am allowed to evolve. When you place yourself in environments that support growth, something remarkable happens. Your thoughts begin to expand, your posture changes, your voice becomes steadier, you start imagining yourself differently, because your surroundings no longer trap you in the past. Growth-friendly environments remind you of your potential instead of your limitations. They encourage curiosity instead of fear. They allow you to explore who you are becoming, rather than who you used to be. The people you spend time with are also part of your environment. If you are constantly around individuals who dismiss your dreams, minimize your growth, or mock your transformation, your self-image will suffer. Not because you are weak, but because human beings are reflective by nature. We absorb the energy around us. We mirror what we repeatedly experience. Choosing healthier connections is not arrogance. It is self-preservation. This does not mean isolating yourself from the world. It means being intentional. It means choosing conversations that uplift instead of drain. It means valuing spaces where your growth is respected, not threatened. And sometimes, it means walking alone for a while so you can hear your own voice clearly again. Your physical environment matters too. A cluttered space can reflect a cluttered mind. A chaotic routine can reinforce emotional instability. When you create order around you, even in small ways, your inner world begins to follow. A quiet corner, a structured routine, a few moments of stillness. These things signal safety and control to your nervous system, allowing your self-image to stabilize and strengthen. When you change your environment, you are not running away from who you were. You are making room for who you are becoming. You are giving your mind new evidence, new reflections, and new possibilities. And over time, those new reflections reshape the way you see yourself. Change the environment and the identity begins to shift naturally, not forcefully, not dramatically, but steadily, confidently, and permanently. Changing the way you see yourself is not a one-time realization. It is not a motivational moment, a powerful speech, or a sudden burst of confidence. Real transformation happens when the new image you hold of yourself is reinforced through consistent action. Consistency is what turns belief into identity. It is what takes a thought and turns it into truth. Without consistency, even the strongest realization fades. With consistency, even the smallest shift becomes permanent. Many people change their self-image for a moment, then fall back into old patterns. They feel inspired, hopeful, empowered, and then life challenges them. A setback arrives, a doubt whispers, an old voice returns, and suddenly, they question everything again. This doesn't mean they failed. It means they stopped reinforcing the new story. The mind believes what it sees repeated. If your actions contradict your new self-image, your mind will return to what feels familiar, even if it's painful. Consistency is how you prove to yourself that you are serious about becoming someone new. It is how you build trust with yourself. Every time you show up differently, speak differently, or choose differently, you send your mind a clear message. This is who I am now. Over time, that message becomes unbreakable. The new version of you is built in ordinary moments. In the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening. In the boundaries you hold when it feels uncomfortable. In the discipline you choose when motivation disappears. In the respect you show yourself when it would be easier to settle. These moments may seem small, but they are powerful. They stack, they compound, they shape identity. Consistency also protects you from external doubt. When you repeatedly act in alignment with your new self-image, the opinions of others lose their power. Criticism doesn't shake you the same way. Judgment doesn't define you. Disapproval doesn't stop you. Why? Because you are no longer relying on validation from the outside. You have evidence from the inside. You know who you are because you live it every day. This is where true confidence is born. Not from perfection, but from reliability. You trust yourself because you keep your word to yourself. You respect yourself because you follow through. You believe in yourself because your actions match your vision. Confidence becomes quiet, steady, and grounded. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need approval. It simply exists. Consistency also rewires your identity. The brain is shaped by repetition. When you repeatedly choose courage over fear, self-respect over people-pleasing, and intention over impulse, your mind adjusts. The old identity weakens, the new one strengthens. Eventually, the new way of seeing yourself no longer feels forced. It feels natural. It feels like home. But consistency requires patience. You will not feel powerful every day. You will not feel confident every morning. Some days, the old voice will try to return. That's normal. The difference is that now you don't obey it. You keep going anyway. You act in alignment even when emotions fluctuate. That is maturity. That is strength. Remember this: you don't become the new version of yourself by thinking differently once. You become that person by choosing differently every day. Identity is shaped by repetition. Character is shaped by commitment, and self-belief is shaped by consistency. If you want to permanently change the way you see yourself, stop waiting to feel ready. Be consistent instead. Show up as the person you are becoming, again and again, until your mind has no choice but to accept it. Consistency is what makes the new you real. At some point in life, the most important transformation you will ever experience will not happen around you. It will happen within you. It will happen the moment you change the way you see yourself. Because the truth is, the world can only meet you at the level you first meet yourself. When you stop defining yourself by past mistakes, old labels, and other people's expectations, you begin to rise. When you stop speaking to yourself with doubt and start speaking with belief, your confidence grows. When you stop waiting for validation and start honoring your own worth, your life begins to shift in ways you never imagined. You are not who you were. You are not what happened to you. You are not the limits you once believed in. You are becoming, every day, through your thoughts, your choices, and the story you tell yourself. Changing the way you see yourself is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about choosing truth over fear. It is about seeing your strength even in your struggle, your value even in your vulnerability, and your power even in your uncertainty. When you change your inner dialogue, you change your energy. When you change your energy, you change how you show up. And when you change how you show up, the world responds differently. So today, make a promise to yourself. Speak kindly to yourself. Honor your growth. Believe in your potential even when the path feels unclear. Because the moment you see yourself differently, everything else begins to fall into place. To change the way you see yourself. And you will change your life.